Hi everybody, I am going to make some homemade sugar lace. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a quarter of a cup of boiling hot water to some TYLOSE powder. And I'm going to give it a really good mix and try to break up the TYLOSE and get it to dissolve into the water. So let's give it a good mix. It takes some time, but it will happen for the most part. Some of it won't dissolve, but most of it will. And then we're going to let it sit for about 20 minutes before adding any other ingredients. As you can see underneath me here, I've got a few mats. So this is a homemade sugar lace product. And there's basically only, 2, 3, 4, about 5 ingredients, not including the gel food coloring. So that is a tablespoon and a quarter of TYLOSE powder and a quarter of a cup of boiling water. So now it's pretty mixed. It looks kind of good. There's still some bits and pieces of TYLOSE that haven't dissolved, but that's okay. They will in time, in 20 minutes. So we'll come back in 20 minutes and we will finish up this homemade sugar veil. Sorry, sugar icing, sugar, no, what I call it? Sugar veil. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes, maybe not quite, but close enough. And all of the TYLOSE has dissolved, so we're good. So now I'm gonna add a teaspoon of corn syrup. Now I always add just a pinch more because not all of it comes out of the spoon. So I'm gonna give this just a little stir. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and a tablespoon of icing sugar. That has been sifted just to remove all the lumps to make it easier to mix. There we go. Now this takes a couple minutes to get it all stirred up. And then what I'm going to add is quite a few drops, about a quarter of a teaspoon, maybe an eighth of a teaspoon of bright white, bright white gel food coloring. So let's give this a nice mix. Get it all mixed up and blended. I found this recipe on YouTube. Don't remember the lady's name or her business or whatever. And I didn't think it would work because I've tried another one before and it didn't work. But I thought, why not? Give it a whirl. I have the TYLOSE powder. She used a different powder, but I'm using TYLOSE. And this worked. So here we are. I'm showing you. So that's corn syrup, cornstarch, icing sugar, TYLOSE powder, boiling water, and some food coloring. You don't have to use white. I'm going to use white because it's going to show up on the mats really nicely. So that's really nicely mixed. Now I'm going to add the color. And I've laid out the mats here that I'm going to use. I want it to be nice and bright white. Yeah, that's about an eighth of a teaspoon of color. I'm in Canada, but I still talk metric, or imperial, not metric. One thing I did notice when I watched the other lady's video is that her mixture is a little thinner than mine, but that's okay. It still works. I want this just a little brighter, so I'm going to add a little more. Let's see. It's a little thick today. It's not as humid today as it has been, so maybe that's why. Or maybe I didn't add quite enough water. I don't know. Anyway, it's a little thicker today, but I think it's still going to work. So watch this. So I'm going to do the grid mat first. I've just got an offset spatula here. Now the trick is to get it into all of the lines, but spreading it enough to make sure that it looks lacy, so that when it dries, you don't have cloudy sections. So it's really easy to work with. It's spreading nicely. I'm just going to go back and forth a little bit to get it into those spaces. Trying to work quickly here for you so that you're not too bored. So let's go this way. Got this mat sitting on top of another one, so it's not coming out even. There we go. That's better. So if you look closely, you can see in between the lines, it would look cloudy if I didn't scrape it off. So here we go. I'm going to give it a nice light at an angle scrape. But then I'm going to take this excess and go back the other way and just make sure all these little holes, there's little tiny spaces that need to be filled in. Just make sure you get all your spaces filled in. Scrape off the excess, and then what you're going to do before you take these off the mat, you're going to wipe them with a damp cloth anyhow to get rid of that cloudiness. So that's what I'm going to do now, is try and get rid of as much cloudiness as I can without actually removing too much of the product in the grid spaces. Now, I watched another video, not with homemade product, but with a commercial product, and they said, do it twice. Go back, wipe it off before you pull them off the mat. Wipe it off with your damp cloth. Okay, I'm just gonna set that aside because I am gonna wipe those off. Now I'm gonna bring you this pretty mat. These are absolutely gorgeous. So I make cookies, but I don't make them commercially. Anyway, before you take it off the mat, go over it a second time and let it dry. So I think that's actually a really, really good idea. I've done it with commercial product. I haven't done it with any of these homemade products yet. So just go back and forth, fill in the space. I've got lots of corn syrup left in my spoon that didn't come out, so maybe that's my issue today. Anyway, so give your mat a wipe, add a second coat, and let it dry again. Maybe not the full 24 hours. And speaking of 24 hours, when I first made this product, and the first time I played with it, I only had to leave it on for 4 hours. Now, wouldn't that be awesome if you're in a hurry and you're making a fancy cake or a batch of cookies that you want to use your mats for? The decorations like this that I'm doing right now is leaves. So like I said, I'm concentrating. I only had to leave it for 4 hours and they were dry. So that's just awesome. So today I'm gonna do the same thing. Yesterday I was working with it and I was impatient, and so I lifted it off way too soon. And so some of them were a little tacky. It still worked, but some were just a little on the tacky side on the bottom. So that's not what you want. So just scrape it off, get the excess off. Make sure all the little holes are filled in. I think I started to say I don't make cookies commercially, I make them for fun. So I'm never in a hurry, but I loved this recipe, so I wanted to share it with everybody. Go ahead, go back and forth. And like I said, you can wipe it off with a damp cloth before you remove them to get rid of any of the cloudiness. But make sure before you finish that you have filled in all of your spaces. Otherwise, you're not going to have that nice lacy mat. Lacy. Lace, sugar lace. Okay, I'm not going to play with that one anymore. That's good enough. Now let's do some snowflakes. I think these are snowflakes, flower snowflakes. Pretty anyway. All of these mats that I'm using today, I believe you can find on my Etsy store, Cookie for Cookies. So if you go into Etsy and you just type in cookie, which I spell C-O-O-K, for cookies. Cookie, K-Y. I'm silent, which is probably a good thing. I'm concentrating, making sure I get in all of these little holes. I want my lace at least to look nice to show you. When I'm experimenting, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that the product actually works. And I know that this recipe works, so I want to do a good job. If you're watching this video on YouTube, let me know how many of you use the grid mats to make like a petty point or a cross stitch style cookie. Okay, so I am going to wipe all of this excess away, but I'm just not going to do it right now. So let's do this mat. I've seen this one done on a cake. I haven't done it on a cake, and it's just gorgeous. What do you think? So far so good? Give me a thumbs up if you're liking this. We still have to remove them. So this is going to be a long video. So what I'm going to do is once I've done a little bit more to show you, I'm going to let them dry for 4 or 5 hours. I'm not in a hurry to get these off, and I want to do some wiping down of the mats and then letting them dry a little bit more, just to make sure that they turn out really good for you. Okay, so we're going to fill some spots in. Scrape carefully. You want it to be lacy, but you don't want it to be cloudy when you take them off. And you don't want to take too much icing off here at this point when you're scraping. I need to take some here. It's a little thick. Oh, it's starting to dry, so I have to be careful. Getting rubbery. So this is really nice and pliable when you take it off. You can bend it and shape it, cut it with scissors, and you can store it. So you could probably store your excess icing sugar veil in the fridge. Haven't done it with this product yet because I keep using it up and playing with it. But other products you can. This is homemade, remember? Other products, commercial products, you can store for about 10 days. You can with this, because I have done it, take them off the mat, wrap them in paper, parchment paper, and store them in a box, a sealed box. And they keep really, really nicely. Okay, so I'm going to come back in about 4 or 5 hours and we're going to remove them, and you'll notice that I will have cleaned up the mats. I'm not going to go back a second time because I just want to try them like this. Anyway, we'll see you in a bit. Okay, should we start removing this sugar lace? I think so. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to start with the purple mat. I've loosened a few things up. And I don't know if you noticed, but you can see that I cleaned up the mat a little bit, but I didn't do all of it because I wanted to show you some of my mistakes. So it's still sticking just a bit, but watch that. It's just pulling off of here beautifully. So you'll probably watch videos and they'll say that, oh, you can put cornstarch or icing sugar or whatever on your mat and it helps to keep it from sticking so badly. I haven't had to do that with this homemade recipe. As you can see how beautifully they're lifting off. Now, what I wanted to show you is the cloudiness. So you can kind of see in there that, you know, I didn't scrape it down good enough and it's not clear. So that's what I mean about making sure that it's all scraped down properly and it's nice and clear and you don't have that cloudiness. So learn from my mistake. It wasn't a mistake. I intentionally didn't wipe and scrape. So there you go. Aren't they pretty? You can cut these down here and down here and put them on an oval cookie and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm just gonna set these aside. Now I'm gonna pull the snowflakes closer and we'll peel those back. These are always a little finicky. There you go, gorgeous. And again, a little cloudiness. I got it a bit thick right in there, but still really pretty. If I was using these for a cookie, I would have been even more careful, but now you can see what I mean about the cloudiness. This one I lifted off earlier, and I had got it really thick on the edge here, so you don't want to do that. So wipe it away Take your damp cloth, wipe even more off. Oh, gorgeous. See how easily they're, I'm just sticking my finger underneath just to get them to lift, and they're coming off nicely. So that was about 5 hours that I left them on here. So you don't have to leave them 24 hours. I started to peel this one for you to show you. Gorgeous. Flexible, bendy. You can cut them. So you could cut these leaves out and use them with the little flowers and add to your cookies. I started this one as well. Just pulls off. Gorgeous. So they look like little doilies. Now this one I wiped down better so there isn't the cloudiness in there. And here comes, can you see that? Here comes the mat. And I've got some cloudiness in the grid mat. Flexible, bendable. Could do all kinds of stuff with this. It's got me thinking. A few clouds, but I could pick those out, I think. Anyway, I'm not using these for anything.